there you are. G'day, Paul Lyons here from paintings.nz, and what I'm going to try and do this evening is a painting of a hilly area just near Oamaru, and the attractiveness of the landscape is really that it's catching the last glimmer of light, and the tops of the hills are just sparkling in this last bit of sunlight for the day. So we've got, so it's just going to be these edges here that are the lit parts. Mixed up two hills there, I think. I'm just sketching in shape. I mean, I am following the original, but it doesn't really matter a lot. What we want is the interplay of these lit and dark areas. Silhouetted against each other. That's probably the right word to use, isn't it? And there's a very dark area just down there because it's heavily treed, and then another lighter area. Just down at the bottom there's a, and I must remember not to put this right down at the very edge of the painting, or it'll end up being covered by the frame. It gets framed. Try to bring that down so it's the same angle. So just down at the very bottom here there is a house, and we must be looking at it from ever so slightly above. So don't know whether I'm going to show this level of detail in terms of windows and so on the house, but we'll see. And well, I'll probably end up putting some bushes over the corners of the house rather than showing it all the way, but and we'll let the hip of the roof be a bit shinier. I think that's probably about all I need as far as a preliminary sketch is concerned. Maybe there's another piece of hill down here, so not all of these are catching the light. Some of them are, some of them aren't. And well, I'll make comments about that when we're doing it, I think, rather than trying to commit myself to doing anything particular at this stage. So it's a fairly cloudy mixture of clouds. There's white clouds and there's dark clouds. So we'll paint in some sky first of all. Try and leave some white space for white clouds, and try and leave some white space for darker clouds, but I'll paint in the darker clouds fairly early on in the piece, I suppose. In fact, since I've got gunge on this brush, I might paint in the dark clouds as the first thing I do. So there's various bits of dark cloudy area. Oh, I haven't got any water down there, have I? I wanted to have bits of water that were going to allow the cloud pigment to move around a bit. So it's all fairly going down towards the hills to the right hand side of the painting. That's what I'm doing at the moment. It looks like I'm doing the left hand side, but I'm doing the right hand side. So I say I don't really care an enormous amount about the shape of the hills, and then I go and spend time trying to outline them quite carefully. But there's a sort of reason behind that, which is that if I don't follow the lines that I've drawn there, I tend to simplify the shapes, and you end up with these very simple curves. And if there are little bumps in the shape of the hill, then they sort of get lost. Following the lines of the hill tends to alleviate that problem a little. So let's, as I said, it's last light, so we can have all sorts of colours in the clouds if we want them. Do we want them? Yes, we do! Oh, I hear you crying for colour in the clouds. So let's add a bit of colour to the clouds, or colour to the crowds, as the case may be. So that's a bit of chromatic excitement in the cloud cover. So let's see if I can find. In fact, I don't see if I can. Let's find some wet bits up there and add some more of this dark in one or two places up there. So that's trying to. It's probably a bit strong as far as colour is concerned, isn't it? Maybe up there? I don't know. Maybe not. I tend to dull my colours down quite a lot, so maybe I'll be a bit more bold on this occasion and just allow for the colour to exist now. I haven't. Ooh, gosh, I've got a lot of water on that eyedropper. A lot of paint on that eyedropper, I should say. Getting all over my hands. I haven't done anything about pre-wetting the sky area, which is one of my standard first steps. So it's this brush has already got some blue in it, or some gunge in it by the look of it. So we'll bluify or gungify the sky area. So we're just trying to produce some white cloudy spaces where the blue of the sky isn't. of my poetical English. Comes of years and years of acquaintance with Shakespeare, where the blue of the sky isn't. Didn't Hamlet say something like that when he was talking about clouds? Backed like a camel. 'Tis backed like a camel where the blue of the sky isn't. I think that's how it went. So maybe let a bit of the blue get into these clouds as well, and something over there just to relieve the boredom of that little area. And so we've got, I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. How am I going to do it? I think I need to protect certain areas. Maybe I'll do it with a towel. I don't want to lose the white areas completely, but I also want to allow the water to just spread into those areas a little bit. So if I put white towel, it doesn't really matter what colour towel it is, if I put towel over the white areas and do a bit of spraying to get the pigment to move a little. So it looks as though it's got some strange disease at the moment, doesn't it? Well, so would you if you're covered in blue pigment. So we can even that out by a bit of judicious angling of the paper and application of mankind's original paint spreader. So let's take the blue down into that. Coloured area there, and I guess I'm inclined to say that's pretty well done for the sky. Let's see if I can just introduce a bit of colour. This is, yeah, getting a bit of colour in above that cloud there, and hopefully the paper, maybe a bit much. Hopefully the paper is wet enough to allow that colour to spread, and I think maybe a bit of something going in these clouds so that they're not completely white, but now they've gone a bit blue, really, haven't they? I didn't really want to do that quite. Just to say they've got some body to them, and I might, having put some body in them, I might now try and take some body out. Sounds like I'm going out on a date, doesn't it? So just introduced a bit of complexity into those areas. Maybe any pigment we add down here will darken things up a bit, which is kind of what I want in the region of the hills. I want them to, some of them at any rate, to have a bit of a light edge just along here, I think. Sometimes I can do good clouds and sometimes I can't. It's yet to be discovered what this is, but it doesn't. It's got two distinct cloud styles, and I mean that is true of the original scene, but I think the original scene was a bit more integrated in terms of the cloud styles than I've managed to achieve. So let's just take out a bit of pigment on various places to try to soften some of that dark area at the bottom. And you can see some of this pigment's coming out with the brush, and I'm also applying some of that pigment up at the top. So I've taken some of the pigment from there down. I'm also trying to take some of the pigment from there up. Thirsty brush, wet, and with the majority of the liquid removed so that it's damp, which allows the paint to flow up, pigment to flow up into the damp bristles. But, I think I'd better probably stop before I destroy whatever benefit there is to the cloud. Yeah, that helped a bit, I think. And a bit of other pigments besides blue in some of these blue areas, and something to just try and three-dimensionalize this area of the cloud by varying the amount of pigment that's there. I think I'm going to leave that. Alright, he says for the 14th time. So, it's probably reasonably dry actually. I've been nattering away. The paint has been doing what paint does, that is to say, it's been getting drier. Pick up a little bit of red, a little bit of blue for the distant hill. So for the last sky, which was in Scotland, so last night's painting, I made a comment in the little write-up that goes with the painting that skies in Europe seem to have a lot more humidity in them, so you get these scenes in which the atmospheric perspective that all the books talk about are in the scenes. The atmospheric perspective is very apparent, and you don't see it to anything like the same extent in New Zealand. Yes, the hills in the very far distance have a blue quality to them, but it's not what happens in Europe, where, I mean, in New Zealand a lot of the time it's either fine or it's raining, but the European scenes have this sort of intermediate appearance where there's a huge amount of moisture in the air, but it's not descending, it's not coming down in as heavy rain the way we tend to get. So, so I'm just trying to beat the laws of physics here by bringing the paint up to the edge that probably isn't really quite dry yet, without it blossoming upwards, because this isn't where I want there to be a light edge on the hill here, so I'm just trying to fill in that 0.5 millimetre or 1/4 millimetre little white edge there without putting paint into the sky. I think that's just about done it though. So that's a very far distant hill, and I'll do another one at the very left hand side of the painting. Oh, and I think before we get too far I'd better pick up some of that blue on the back and dry it off the back of the paper, because it'll wick up and we get blossoms at the top. In fact, I suspect that I might have to dry it to prevent that happening in the very near future, because I can see right just there it's starting to do that. Where's my heat gun? Yeah, quick. So the decal edge of the paper, where the fibres are looser, acts as a moisture, acts as a sponge. So it's a moisture reserve, and it'll bring the liquid down. I think I might just harden that edge up, or darken that edge up a little bit, because I want that to show up a bit more than I think it's going to. So move that over there so that when I eventually do that other hill, we don't get two hill edges lining up with each other in a very suspiciously artificial looking fashion. Alright, that's got the contrast that I'm after there, and hopefully we'll be able to provide sufficient contrast between these things as well. And on the other side, let's have some far distant hills. No, I don't think I want a lit edge over here, because that's going to take people's eye out of the painting. I want the lit edges to be in this general sort of region towards the middle. Okay, so we're getting from the really distant hills a little bit closer to us, so let's lit a little bit of yellow into the mixture. And again, I'm pushing my luck by running this paint right up to the shall we have a little bit of light there? I think I was going to, wasn't I? So let's just leave that edge unpainted, and let's try to suggest some three-dimensionality to the shape of the hill. I can't help myself, can I? All right, now a relatively clean brush and some relatively clean water. It comes out of the bottle nice and clean, and just run that along the edge there to see if we can convince some of the pigment to run up into the... I should have done that to start with, I think, probably. to run up into the top of the hill, so it's not white paper. I'm using, the particular paper I'm using tonight is bright white. So I don't really want it to be bright white, where the tops of the hills are catching the light. And let's put in some more hill behind. And after all, this is pretty backgroundy, this area. And again, we'll just let a little bit of light kiss that. This scene is kind of contradictory. I'm not absolutely certain where the light is coming from. There are parts, I'm working from a photograph, and the parts of the photograph that make me think that the light is coming from the right, and there are parts of the photograph that make me think it's coming from more from the left. I'm not sure. Maybe it's, I don't know. Maybe it's being reflected by clouds. That's probably what's happening. A bit of yellow in there. In fact, let's put a bit of yellow in there as well, I think. And there. Okay, and we're going down here. Sorry I abandoned you when the camera turned off, but it was out of its half hour of limited recording time, so I was painting wet into wet, and I had to keep going, otherwise I would have completely ruined the effect. So there was a period during which I had to just keep applying paint. So that's given us some slightly lit edges. Darken that a bit. And try and cover over that bit which started to dry inconveniently. And well, let's do it the other way, because this this should probably work anyway. Sorry, I'm muttering to myself, which isn't really helping you at all. I was going to apply yellow up here, which I'm doing, as you can see, and then darker colour below, and I wanted to avoid a hard edge between the first layer of paint and the second layer of paint. I think I'll just let them run into each other if they want to. Okay, and just carry that on down to the corner there. It is running rather more than I was hoping. Never mind, never mind. So more yellow as we get closer to the viewpoint. So I don't necessarily mean that the edges of the hills are more yellow, but that the hills themselves are greener. So try and get rid of that at some stage in the future, but I think we'll leave that for the moment. What am I going to do now over there? And we've left out this sort of intermediate hill here, which is going to be not particularly standouty. It's a technical term that you'll find in all the best art books. Or not, as the case may be. So one of the attractive features about these squirrel brushes is that they hold a lot of liquid, and they can also come to a very fine point, which means you can do large areas with them and also fine detail. But they do need to be wet in order to work properly. So as you may have noticed, I started out with really rather a dry brush. It's quite hard when it's full of paint left over from the previous painting. Right, let's see if we can deal with this edge which suddenly appeared. The bloom, that is. Well, it didn't suddenly appear, it was taking a while to appear. I was leaving it to develop, and then I thought I'd try and counteract it. Hopefully without getting a counter bloom going down in the other direction. Oh, you've got to watch out for counter blooms. Yeah, alright, so it's kind of doing the sort of thing we want on the edges of some of those hills. And another hill over there on the right hand side that doesn't have any especially distinguishing features about it, because we don't want to take the viewer's attention over to the edges of the painting. We want people to stay and look at our painting for as long as possible. So put things in the middle that catch their attention, and on the outside that act as a border to what am I doing there? Act as a border. I didn't bring that hill far enough, did I? To block their eyes from going off the edge of the painting. So all that gives us a general shape going in that direction. Let's try and fill in that drop of white. Now, try and get back to this little bit here, although actually I'm thinking about that. Oh no, that's right, I do want to, in fact, yeah. I wanted to have quite a light border down there, didn't I, on that hill, just to counteract some of the other stuff over here. Okay, now, as I said, there's some trees growing down here, so that's going to be really quite dark. Just to relieve this sort of very coloured greenness. But I might do some more rolling green hills over on the left hand side at this stage to just fill in that area of the painting. They're not going to be not enough yellow in that. In fact, I want to put some... Ooh, we've got all sorts of tendrils coming down that hill, haven't we? I wonder if they'll work. There's a... to imply light coming. So that's a bit of yellowy colour going up there, spreading around, and now we can put some other greeny hill colour in there. I don't particularly want that to stand out. And now we're again, I think I'll put some yellowy colour in here. It's not going to make a very strong statement. It's just that the hills have got a bit of light on them in this region. So we'll put that there to come up through the... God, that looks like a snow cap, doesn't it? There we go. And that's not quite what I wanted to do. So rolling hills with bits of light catcher going on. I need to bring that one down. That one to there. Maybe that's going to come down or something, I don't know. They join each other. And then we kind of get to an area down the front here that's got grass, which I might partly cover over with trees. And you can see that yellowy colour there is getting a bit of green coming back into it. Don't know about this one. So we'll try and blend in from below, as it were, in this edge of the house, and more greenery over there, pasture or something. Maybe there'll be trees, I don't know. And it's coming across the front of the house as well. Oops, that house needs to have a bit of angulation on it, doesn't it? Otherwise we won't have the laws of perspective being observed. And you can get arrested for breaking the laws of perspective. Maximum penalty, I think, is 14 years in flatlands. It's a wonderful book which I think is called Flatland, which is about what it would be like to live in a two-dimensional universe. Okay, so now we've got... What am I going to do about that edge? I was going to put some bright colour there, wasn't I? Or try to. That edge. In various places where there's light catching the tops of the hills, going up there as well. So all that whatchamacallit is background. Okay, so now we're going to move on to some dark trees. What I'm going to do with that house, but we'll deal with that at some stage. So the trees are dark, and we need to have some dark paint. So they're following the top of the hill here, just doing nothing in particular. More trees, and we'll just let a bit of lightness from the brush stroke. We'll take those trees up to there. So we've got some lightness at the bottoms of the brush strokes, which are quite useful for suggesting that there's more than one row of trees. And we take this dark down to define the top edge of the house. And just because there happens to be one, although that's never sufficient justification for putting something into a painting, the fact that something happens to be there. But there's a big tree going up there. But the reason I feel justified in doing that is that there are other similar pencil-shaped trees putting in over here on the left. So that sort of picks up the trees here, and then we'll put in some, let's make them a bit greener. Other I don't want them bending off to the left, taking everybody's eye out of the painting, do I? And say there's something growing up that slope as well, because you get growth that goes up the edges of things. So I don't know, we'll have some growth in and around the house. So these people are, as well as being arboriculturalists, they are house proud, so they've put in some hedges nearby. So we've got, yeah, that's sort of leading the eye, isn't it? And we'll have a bit more hedgy going up there also to lead the eye. I don't know how much of this is going to get covered over by the frame, but well, we'll see. I don't really want this dark area down the right hand side, but I also don't want something to quite mirror that, so let's just try darkening the pasture in this area. Perhaps not quite as much as that, do you say? I think perhaps I heard you say that. A little bit of shake gone in there. So we'll let that stay there, and we'll just cover over these white splots with some dark splots. So that doesn't really say anything very much. And maybe I don't know whether I want to do this or not. Maybe I'll have some more trees, because I'm not very excited by this bloom that's appeared. So use these trees to define the edge of this ridge, and also, yes, I think so I'll need to get rid of that white area, but that's easily done. So there's another row of trees going behind there, we'll say. Which hopefully deals with our blossom that came down there. So there's no blossom there visible anymore. Now there's some white there that I don't particularly want. Let's just put in a bit of just dark enough colour. Similarly there, and there. So I'm not putting in the same colour as the hills, but it's not going to show from more than a few inches away. No. Do I want to? I suspect that I may want to darken that a little bit, and also to clarify the edge there a bit darker. Alrighty. So the house, as you get to go in, and actually I'll turn the camera off and turn it on again because we're running out of time again. And if I don't have to worry about that, I don't have to worry about it. Okay, so house. House, I suspect, is a white house, not with American presidents living in it, but a house that our house-proud arboriculturalists have painted white. Of course, it's facing away from the sun, so it is not going to be painted white. And the other second wall of the house also painted white. I suspect I want to creep up on this darkness. Don't want to go too dark too quick. Mind you, with the towel I can always blot it out. So let's darken that ever so slightly. Particularly up under the eaves. Alright, and the roof is catching more light than the walls are. I seem to have produced something that's more or less the same colour, in fact, as the walls. That's why I say I need to sneak up on this dark colour to try and get it right. So, more dark on the wall. Leaking up onto the roof, goody. Water, as everybody knows, flows uphill. When I was a boy, one of our neighbours who built houses and extensions came over to look at our house where there seemed to be a leak in the roof, and he swore that water would flow uphill. Given half a chance. Don't think he found the leak. I think I eventually traced it. And it turned out to be it was possible to repair it by putting a coin in between the edges of two pieces of corrugated iron, so there must have been water flowing down between them, and I was able to allow it to have a clear path to the gutter by putting in this coin. God knows what it did to the electrochemical properties of the two dissimilar metals. So, corrugated iron, which of course is covered in zinc. I think the coin was probably a penny. Going back long enough, far enough, so it would have been copper. So I guess copper's fairly far down on the electrochemical scale. It would have just eaten away in the zinc, I guess. Being a sacrificial anode. Let's just emphasise the edge there. Right, so having done that, I'm now going to add some more trees. So that's a bit of tree there, a bit of tree going along the edge of the house there as well. So the house is not really a major feature, but I do want the white that's at this hip to be pointing up into the rest of the painting. And I feel as though I might be reasonably close to done. A whole lot of treeage over there. So what do you reckon? Do you think we've finished? Oh, and I was going to do something with that hill, wasn't I? Because it needs darkening. But not to anything like as dark as these trees. And also probably a bluer colour. So I suspect that this will be a put paint on and take paint off again. Yeah, looks like it, doesn't it? But that's all right. We don't mind doing that. And yeah, Why this edge is catching the sun and this edge is not, I don't know. It's one of the mysteries of the universe. There we are, that's just given it a bit of three-dimensional structure, not enough to distract, but just enough to show it's not a flat piece of paint on the paper there. Let's knock that white back just a smidgen, and that one there as well. What do you reckon? Bit of yellow on that there, I think. Just to try and bring in some consistency with the light areas and the light edges in the rest of the painting. You can use amazingly small amounts of paint in watercolour painting. I dispensed a, which I think you probably can't see because it's off camera, a drop of yellow paint to do this, which is smaller than a gnat's eye. I don't particularly want a light edge down there. I don't know whether I did at one stage or not, but oh, I think I was avoiding back runs into the clouds, wasn't I? All right, that house is standing out far too much, isn't it? What am I going to do with that? It's just a different colour from the rest, and I want this here. I think I'm going to I might sort of try and darken up this whole area with a green wash. That's I've gone off applying washes to large areas of things because they lose you the detail, but I can't see what else I can do. Oh, that's far too much. Let's take paint out of there. Okay. So that's darkened up the walls of the house considerably, but probably more than I wanted. So now, having put the paint on, we'll take the paint off, which restores the house and its windows. We no longer have much definition for that line of trees across the front, but that probably doesn't matter. And let's darken the roof, except for that. Yeah, that's kind of getting to where I want, I think. Take some paint off there. So that shows up enough, but not too much. And I don't know whether I can reconstitute some trees along here a bit. Yeah. And again, whether this is going to end up underneath the frame. I mean, it shouldn't all, but well. All right, this has reached the stage, I think, where I go and sit and look at it. So you're welcome to come and sit and look at it too. And we will make our decision together about whether this is finished. Righty-ho. Attempt number 3, or not so much attempt number 3, but this is the third time I think that the camera's been turned on. I think that this middle set of hills is not standing out quite enough against the, well, particularly against the things above it. So we're going to try to play one of the painter's old tricks, which is to lighten something, or sorry, to darken something where it's against something light, to try and emphasize the contrast. So I'm going to darken this, hopefully only a little, to just bring out the lighter hill, which is closer to the viewer. So put down some water. Put down some paint. I might use a smaller brush. And particularly in there, I think, is an area where I want to clarify. And having done that, I then want to try and so now all we see is the brush strokes, isn't it? So let's have a ridge going down there, shall we? And I think we'll play the same trick down here as well, although it's not quite as necessary, I don't think, but well, can't do any harm, can it? Yes, it can. Oh, yes, it can. Everything you do to a painting has the potential to mess it up horribly. Again, I don't want to just draw a dark line there. I've got to have some sort of feeling that this colour that I'm adding is part of the structure of the actual hill. So that, yeah, that sort of does it, I think. Maybe doing a little bit in just there as well, and since that's also seem to have developed a theory that the light is coming from the right. Remember I said I couldn't work out really from the original photograph that I took what direction the light was coming from. Well, it seems to have ended up with light on the sort of right-hand edges of hills, suggesting that the light is coming from down there, so up there somewhere down there. So that, I think, deals with the lack of definition of these hills one against the other. The other thing I don't like is these two clouds. I've just been ignoring them for the past hour or so, and they really just look very unrealistic. I don't know quite what I'm going to do about them. Try to take some pigment off. It's not always very successful. I could try and put some more cloud in between. Actually, what if I try to take some pigment off here? I won't get very much off, but get a bit off. And if I use the right tool for it, this is a very hard towel, toweling materials. This is the hardest one I've got. I've got 3 of them sitting here, waiting for the chance to be used. And I think what I'll do is to just try and scrape into, or scrape up the pigment. It's making it look worse, isn't it? But with any luck, we'll be able to get through that top layer. There you go, just removing some of the surface of the paper, which sounds like a really drastic thing to do. It's okay as long as you don't want to paint over it again, because it doesn't quite behave the same when it's had its surface removed. Well, neither would you. And now let's just see if we can. It's got a lot of. I thought that was the colour left over from doing the sky. God only knows what colours were there. I mean, there was red in there and there was yellow. Simply because those are the colours that I use. In my palette. So does that? Yeah. Oh, this has got to the stage of, for God's sake, stop, because you're making it worse every time. But then you look at this and you think, oh, that one needs to have something done to it as well. Let's try doing just a little. In that region. Stop, or we'll destroy the entire painting. That feels reasonably dry. So now we're going to try sanding some of that surface pigment off. Sometimes sandpaper works and sometimes it just makes things look awful. So we're going to try for this to be one of the occasions when it makes things look all right. So if you believe in fairies, children, clap your hands. What's this saying, pantomimes? Alright, so what's gone on here since last you saw the painting is that I did what I said I wasn't going to do. I started sanding some of these areas, and because I've used this side of the paper, the two sides of the paper have different sorts of patterns on them, the sanding takes off the tops of the bumps in the paper and leaves the valleys alone. And because this side of the paper happens to have a fairly regular pattern to it, it leaves a sort of series of dots going across the edges. So this has been heavily sanded. This is lightly sanded, and these lightly sanded areas have got these dots on, which I've been carefully just trying to blend with the end of my knife, which you can do. It's tedious, but it does work. So I've still got these regular repeating units up here. Somebody could tell me what space group it is if they want to. Which won't make any sense to you unless you're a crystallographer. So in addition to messing around with the clouds, I've also just emphasized the edges of some of these hills. So put dark against light, dark against light, and I've darkened these two hills just a little bit so that they're standing out against the clouds. And there's now just a little bit more definition of the land against the sky. I also did quite a lot of scraping out of this cloud area here, just to give a slightly lighter edge to the hills there. And I think that we've reached the point of diminishing returns, that this is now acceptable, and any more messing around with it is probably going to take away quality rather than add it. So that's it for the evening, and we'll catch you next time. See you later.